Okay, so let's take a look at that scan. And so, yeah, we've moved from initiating to running, and it looks like we've got most of the way through my scan. Your progress might be a little bit different if you set any of the settings a little bit different. So if you decided to run a more thorough scan, then you might have a ways further to go. But typically running a scan against that WAR file is pretty quick. So I think that we'll have some issues against this pretty soon. In the meantime, so we can see the real-time field. So the scan timeline is real-time, scan status, and then scan progress over here is the other main real-time field that we're looking at. Once we have issues, we'll be able to view the issues specifically from this scan here in the Issues tab. So this is going to be populated with a number of issues. And then we can take a look at any fixed groups that were found here as well. And then under the Configuration tab, so this is just some basic information about the configuration for this scan. So it just tells us about, what file did we upload. Most of this is, I guess, a little bit less relevant for a static scan than there's some additional information that would show up if this was a dynamic scan that can be useful. For a static scan, probably not too much that you need from here, unless you were working with the REST API, in which these scan and execution IDs can come in handy. Also, if you were putting in a support ticket, sometimes they would ask for the scan ID or execution ID, so it makes it easy to copy and paste, rather than having to type this number in. Or let's see. So, actually, looks like the scan's completed. Great. So from let's see. Oh, it hasn't processed issues yet. So it looks like we've got another minute or so before the issues actually show up. There we go. So from here, yeah, let's go from here. You could download an offline report from here. So if you clicked on download report, then it gives you a few options for this. You're welcome to generate one if you want to, but we're going to work off of the interface to actually look at these. It is worth knowing the different report types that we have there. So you can do just a standard security report. You could do an industry standard report. So that's going to be like, if you wanted to do just an OWASP top 10 report, for example. You could do a regulatory compliance report, which is similar, but it's more to match one of these like the GDPR standard. If you wanted to do like a HIPAA report, for example, it's going to be excuse me, it's going to be specific around those compliance standards. Or you could do an open source report, which is going to be this is one that we might actually run. Let's do that in a minute when we start getting to the open source side of what we just did. But then at the bottom, we're seeing we've got a few different formats that you can put this into as well. So you could do an HTML file, PDF, which is a little easier to share, or a machine readable CSV. So yeah, we'll come back to that to look at the open source report. But to look at the actual issues, let's go ahead and click on the issues tab here. So here you get the list of all the different issues. You can see first showing up, we've got some open source issues. And then the issue type is just gonna show up here in this column. So let's see if we can find a good example of an issue to take a look at. Let's see what we have for SQL injection issues. That's an easy one to go over. Yep. So when you look at an issue, okay, yeah, this has a good stack on it. So when you look at an issue, you're going to have some general high-level information. So that's going to be like, what type of a scan was this? What's the issue type? When was it first found? Things like that. So some high-level meta information. And then we're going to explain. So if the issue belongs to a fixed group, that's going to be mentioned, and you can click out to the fixed group. So if it's related to other similar issues with the same fixed point. And then under the details, then you're going to get information. Specifically, you're going to get the source and sink of the vulnerability. So this is where untrusted data has come into the application. Here's where it's used in an unsafe way. And then you have a method stack. So anywhere that this particular data flow is, it touches on anything, whether it's the source, the data coming into the application, if it's passed around to other methods, if it's combined with other strings, then you get references all throughout this method stack. And then, here within the method stack, the source and the sink are identified for you. And then on the left, this blue line is the suggested fix point. So here is where we think that you should be fixing this issue. So this fix point is also how we tie those the different fix groups. So how we can join multiple vulnerabilities together as related. It's because they all have this same fix point in the vulnerability. So from there, that's the details on this specific instance of this issue. And then if we go over to how to fix, this is centered more around the issue type. So it's going to explain like what causes a SQL injection error. What's the risk to you if you have a SQL injection error present? And at more of like a high level, like how would you go about fixing a SQL injection issue? So this isn't so much as it relates to your source code. This is just understanding the issue type and how it should be dealt with in a kind of a general way. You'll notice that we've got some languages called out up top here. And you can actually select the language that you're working in. So we'll select Java. And now you'll get links out and code samples that are language specific. So this can help. It's not going to be snips of your source code here, but this is just going to show you, within the language that you're working with, what type of, what the code would look like, as it's done incorrectly, correctly, what does the fix look like? So, here we're just showing an example of prepared statements as a means to fix SQL injection vulnerabilities, and it's done in Java. Then we also have an audit trail. So this is as a brand new scan, it's only going to have one entry for each of these issues. But you can see that, here we're saying that this issue was first found from this scan, and list out details of the issue. If anything changes with this issue, so let's go ahead and change the issue status. And we'll set, so select the box for the issue that we're looking at, and then click on Edit Status just above this, this box here. And we can go ahead and set the status. Let's just set it to open. So this is, the different status that you can use for issue management. You can set it to open once you've validated an issue, in progress, maybe once it's been assigned to somebody. You can mark issues as false positives here by setting them to noise, or if it's just some other informational issue that you want to get out of your reports. You can mark them as fixed once they've been resolved. And passed, I've seen it used a few different ways. I've seen it used as kind of like a deferred status. So it gets it out of your reports, but gives you a list of issues you can come back and check on. Maybe they're just low priority, or maybe you've got another layer of security that protects against them. But maybe these are issues that you still want to come back to every 6 months to a year just to make sure that nothing's changed. I've seen past used in that way. I've also seen it used, one organization, they didn't want to go through and check for false positives because the security team, it was very small. So they just assigned issues out to developers. And if a developer decided something was a false positive, rather than setting it as noise, they would set it as passed, and the security team would use that as a flag to get a second set of eyes on it to just kind of verify that it was set, that it really is a false positive. And then they could set it to noise at that level. So for our example, we're going to just go ahead and set it to open. And then, you can put something in the comment field too. So, I'll just say this is a valid issue. You can put anything you want in there, or leave it blank if you want to. But we'll go ahead and hit save, and you'll see on the left that the status has changed to open. We still have the issue open in the panel here. And now if we go to the audit trail, you can see that the status has changed, and you can see who did it. You can see a timestamp of when they did it. And so you can actually track if you've got somebody setting an issue to a false positive, then you have a way to audit and track and know who's responsible for that. And then finally, under the comments tab here, if we open up comments, you can see that comment that I added is going to show up, and you can add additional comments as well. So you can have everyone on your team with an entire conversation going on around an issue, keep that information all in one place. And if someone marks it as a false positive, they can put a justification here. And so that's I think covers tracking these issues, being able to view all that stuff. Something else worth mentioning is that this is an issues view that's specific to just this scan. So, if you see up in the top this breadcrumb navigation, we go back to the scans view. We could have one of these for all of the scans that have happened. We do 3 more scans, we'll have 3 different entries that we can look at separately here. And, like I mentioned, you can run a report for just that scan. Something else that you can do, if we go up another level to the application itself, is that you can run a report here and it'll cover all of the scans that have been done. So let's say that we've done 3 different scans. Maybe one of them was a dynamic scan with a completely different set of issues. So this report's going to include all of that, any scan that has happened in the past. The contents will go into this report. And then the other view that we have, if we click on in the top left here, all issues, then it looks like that same view that we had, but this is within our interface. This is also looking at all issues from all scans that have happened. So, if we had a DAST scan and a SAST scan, all those various issues, they're all going to show up here, so you can access everything at once. So this is kind of like the point of authority for all of the issues that have ever been found in this application. And the third kind of report that you can pull, so we talked about one just for the scan, we talked about one for the entire application, is you can do a filtered report here. So you could select just a few of these issues, just check the boxes and select a few. And from here, we can click security report. And now you can see, we just have these 4 selected items. And when you're doing this type of report also, you can include the details that you want. I think anywhere that you run the standard security report, you get this option. But yeah, you can actually select, of those pieces that we looked at within the interface, like how to fix the audit history, stuff like that. You can actually select which of these are going to show up in this report that you export. Other than that, it's pretty much the same as the other views that we looked at to generate the reports. And I think from there, we could maybe talk about the open source scan that was also done when we performed this scan. So we looked at a standard SQL injection issue, so normal security issue. If we found an issue from an open source component, it's going to be a little bit different from that. So you can see we've got a few of them here. Let's go ahead and select one of these open source pieces. And if you're not seeing like the same view as me, you can actually go into the search box and start typing open source, and it should filter down to just these open source components. But with one of these selected, you'll see the views very similar. The main difference here is just going to be under the details, where you can see, it's going to explain what the issue is. And oh gosh, what happened? Oh, I think I was just kicked out. Let me log back in. One moment, guys. Sorry about that. Strange. Let me go back to my application, and then I'll go back to all issues, and we'll go back to an open source issue. And okay, so we were looking at the details for the issue. So it explains, what's the vulnerability that was found. And then under resolution, and this is about what it's going to look like for all open source issues that you see. It's just going to tell you to upgrade the package, and it'll give you the version in which this issue has been fixed. So with the open source or SCA type scan, it's really centered around known issues in packages that are out there. And so, typically it's just like the fix is always going to be upgrade to the appropriate version. And then it'll link out and give you additional information on the issue that was found. Yeah, how to fix this stuff is going to be pretty lean. It's basically going to say exactly what I just did. So those are issues that are found from an open source scan. The other piece that's important for the open source scan, let's go back to the application view. I think we can get it from there. So from the application view, if we go under manage and do a report, so this is like that all application report, we can do an open source report. So we can select that. I think HTML is going to be fine. And we'll go ahead and run this open source report. So I'll remind you that this open source scan was done at the same time that we did the static scan. And it was looking for open source third-party libraries that were in use. And that's what goes into this report. So, it's letting you know that there were 30 libraries that were found, and you can go ahead and generate the report. This is pretty quick. So I don't think I'll be able to show you anything else while this generates. We'll just wait for this to finish. And that looks good. And we can go ahead and open up this this open source report. So here, you'll get a basic summary. Then it's going to list out the various libraries that were found, including their version, and then license type as well. And then it'll list out the different license types. And if you click on, these are clickable, it's actually going to link out to the like the official page for that license. So like the Eclipse license links out to eclipse.org. And then it'll list one by one, each of the licenses. So here's, everything using Apache 2.0 license. And it'll just list out the libraries and include information on that library. So it'll tell you, what version are you using? What is the copyright risk for using Apache 2.0? What is the patent risk for using Apache 2.0? And some additional meta information around this license type. So this is kind of like a manifest file for you. Something in the future, very, very common question that we get is around SBOMs, and that's probably going to be the next step for this type of report. It's not something that we offer yet as far as like a machine readable standardized SBOM, but this contains, much of the same information, so it can provide, that type of info around the libraries that are used. And then possibly in the future that could be something that gets added. So yeah, that's the open source report. And I think that really covers the as far as vulnerabilities, and then that manifest report kind of covers the output for the open source or software composition functionality. Let's see. What else can we go over? Oh, let's go over the fixed groups also. So let's see if we got any good fixed groups from the from the scan that we just did. Okay, so I went back into the all issues view, and then from here we can click on fixed groups, and we get a list of the different fixed groups that were found. Probably the easiest one to look at is going to be this SQL injection fixed group. So we'll go ahead and open this up. And here you can see the various vulnerabilities that are part of this fixed group. And there's that one that we set to an open status was one of them. And you can see the information on these individual issues it's going to show up just like we did from the other views. And then this fixed point, you can see is this dbutil line 219. I believe sometimes the fixed point isn't exactly the same, but usually it's going to show up. Yep, dbutil line 219. That's the most common, most straightforward way that these fixed groups are organized, is when they have the same fixed point. So you should see, I think all of these are going to be identical as far as the location of the fix. So yeah, so when looking at these fixed groups, you can actually go in, locate the fixed point, and when you take care of that, probably quickly verify that nothing looks out of order with the other issues. But then you can just take the entire group and set them all to fixed all in one go. So let me see. I'm getting a time check here. I think can probably go ahead and wrap up soon. Let me make sure that there's nothing else that I wanted to cover as far as the interface here. Yeah, I think fixed groups were the big one. Yeah, I think we can probably cover that for the lab. Cody, did we have any questions that would make sense to talk through that have been coming through the chat? Now would probably be a good time for those types of questions as well, while we still have the interface open.
So we've had some support about, we've had some questions asked about support of different technologies. Do we support this language, or do we support this platform? One thing, a question I think that would be good to address too is around policies. So we had a question about, are there any way for them to find controls around processes and procedures, and not just what's in the code, like maybe a questionnaire around an application's posture for, let's say, like PCI. I had to answer that, administrative and process controls we cannot detect. We really only have what's visible to us in the code. And I thought that was something good to bring to light.
Yeah, I think that's worth talking about. I will point out that we do have a PCI compliance policy, but again, like Cody's mentioned, this is going to be specific to application vulnerabilities that are found. So AppScan is, it's very specific towards vulnerabilities that show up in your code that are available in an application. The different, operational information that also goes into PCI compliance or these types of policies, it's going to be a little bit out of scope for AppScan. But for something that does show up in the form of application vulnerabilities, like that's where you're going to be able to tie in along with these types of policies.
Yep.
So, yep, I think that about covers that question. And any other good ones that we might want to call out?
Well, you addressed one about S-bombs. So we had a question about S-bombs. I think you covered that one.
Oh, okay. Okay, awesome.
And we just had a question come in. Can we upload the AppScan source results to gather them all in one place?
So if you're using AppScan Source, our on-prem tool, I don't believe we have an integration from AppScan Source to AppScan on Cloud. And correct me if I'm wrong on that, Cody. We do have that for AppScan Standard. So you can actually, you can perform scans in AppScan Standard, and probably the more common use case is to set up your configuration in AppScan Standard, then actually run from the cloud. But I believe that you can just port the results up. If you can't do it yet, I know it's a planned feature, but I think that one's already in there.
Yeah, I think I think what we can do for AppScan Source is if you did publish your AppScan Source to AppScan Enterprise, I think we can pull AppScan Enterprise results into ASOC, but it's kind of a, I don't think I would recommend doing that. I'd rather just run the scan directly from AppScan on Cloud, I think.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that too. And part of the reason behind that is, we have the same scan engine in our on-prem and cloud offering, but this is kind of work that we've been putting in. As long as AppScan has been with HCL, we've been working towards feature parity between the on-prem and cloud offerings. And so, that's one of the areas that I think we're a little bit further ahead on DAST, is just, having those issues being able to move between platforms easily. So this is an area where you probably will see, moving forward in the future, more and more interoperability. But yeah, just as far as porting from source to cloud, I would say is probably not recommended at this time. Where if you were doing DAST scans with standard, you probably will have a little easier time with that.